Today we're going to interview Miss Sofia. My classmates is Raimundo, de Campos, Catalina Aravena, de Galvez, and of course Miss Byrone. So Catalina is going to ask the first question. So Catalina, go ahead.
Hello, Miss.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
How long have you been living here in Chile?
I have been living in Chile since December 2007, but since it was laid on, I count it as that I started living here since 2008, so about 10 years.
And now I ask some questions from the culture of Norway.
Okay.
What kind of food is typical in Norway? No?
Well, we don't have like a very specific dish like in Chile where we have empanadas and platos de choclo, things like that. But Norwegians love to eat potatoes in all sorts of forms. Mashed potatoes, cooked potatoes, okay, just potatoes. We also have one dish that can be considered like a national dish, which is called smalahue. It might sound a little bit disgusting. It's a sheep's head boiled in some sort of stew or soup, right, with cabbage and whole peppers.
Well, in Chile we sometimes eat like the head bucket, so it's not really that way for me.
Here,
Right.
yes. The
Kind of
dog
sense.
eat the head of the
Yes.
Yeah. There's another one that's with cabbage and pepper, like I said. That's not the same as smalahue. And that's with, I believe, pork meat. It's tasty, I like it.
And what cultural differences are between Chile and Norway?
Wow, that's a big question. Many cultural differences, which I see every day, basically. I don't know, maybe social responsibility is one that I notice the most, as, for example, in Norway, they're very aware of not contaminating, taking their garbage with them if they go to the beach or wherever you go in nature. People are very aware of the fact that we need to take care of nature because it's used by you and it's there for you and for everyone else. So there's consideration for the rest of the population too, always in that sense.
We have the same consideration because in Chile we have a lot of trash, and even in Santiago you can even feel the fresh air anymore because it's contaminated with smoke.
Yeah, I noticed that when I've been to Santiago sometimes, and it's so bad that you can just do this after and it will be like black around your nose because of the smog in Santiago, which is really bad.
Yes.
We don't have that kind of problem in Norway, also because they're very aware of taking care of nature and making it a good place for everyone to share and to enjoy, basically. Especially forests. We have a lot of forests, which is what I miss the most from Norway, is being able to just walk out of my house, I don't know, walk 10-15 minutes, and then being able to step into a forest and get lost in a forest.
And what kind of custom do you have in your country?
Can you be more specific?
Like here in Chile we have custom like the 18 September.
Oh, okay. We have Constitution Day. That would be like, might be considered by some like the national day, and that's 17. Mai. It's May 17th. People call it just 17. Mai. And that's a popular festivity where we celebrate Norway. Basically, all schools, all children are excited about 17. Mai because You walk through the city streets. Okay, so they're closed, by the way, so there are no cars transiting through the streets. And from early on in the morning, schools prepare all the grades, right, from first to high school, and we make banners. Like, for example, if you're in 7th grade, you would make one personalized. They will work on that together and make one for 7B that says 7B. And of course, the person in the class that gets to carry the banner feels very important, right? So on the side of the road are the parents of the children. So when you walk through the streets, you're always looking for your parents, and then you're like waving to them. Everyone's happy on the 17th of May. And we eat a lot of ice cream. That day is an excuse to eat a lot of ice cream. After that, people go to their homes and maybe have a barbecue and share and eat like cakes. They love to eat cakes too. Cakes and have some coffee. And also, they wear the national costume. The name of that is called bunad. And they are very expensive, by the way, and heavy. They have like silver details on them. The work behind them is also extensive, so that's why they're very expensive too. And there is one typical for each region of Norway, so they're different in details, basically.
What kind of festivities are there in Norway?
Like aside from the Constitution Day, I read it was something like the like that.
Janteloven. Janteloven is not a festivity. It's just like an unwritten law. It's not a real law, but it's something that every Norwegian knows about from you're little. It's kind of like a text that talks about Norwegians being and having to be humble, right? So it talks about humility, about respect, about equality, about not flaunting. If you're wealthy, you don't go and talk about like, oh, I have so much money, or I bought this. So that's with reference to being humble, right? So you don't talk about that. And basically, it is about equality and respecting each other, always being humble, and basically about egalitarianism. So, and that's a quality I believe Norwegians have. Like, people don't go around talking about their wealth, right? Even if you're wealthy. That's an important thing to mention. Class differences are not so marked in Norway as they are here. That's maybe also with reference to something you asked about before. For example, in Norway, a doctor can live next door to a painter or a janitor, right? And that doesn't matter. You walk out in the morning and the doctor will say hi to the janitor just like any other person, which is something that doesn't really happen here because we divide neighborhoods into classes, basically.
Yes.
I don't know if you've noticed, but we have, for example, Las Rastras far away from, I don't know, Jose Miguel Carrera, right? And they don't mingle, and they don't meet, and they don't talk to each other unless it's something very specific. That doesn't happen in Norway because everyone has the same rights to choose to live wherever you want to, and because the economy is good enough to allow you to get anything you want with a lot of effort and work and effort behind it.
Wish we had that kind of idealism here, because
I wish too.
We are like so antisocial with everyone. I mean, we barely talk with each other when we're in the street. Even if we feel uncomfortable. It's like, oh, I don't want to say hi, so when you're close, we say hi, Max. But
Just by courtesy,
yeah,
right?
it's
Yeah.
like not to disrespect, something like that. But that's nice to hear from Norway that they have that kind of attitude to each other, depending, I mean, not caring about their social or wealth or anything like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, can you tell us about the mythology of Norway?
Oh, yes. Probably is also something I miss is the mystery of the mythology. I don't know if you heard about trolls.
Yes.
Trolls come from Nordic countries, maybe not reserved only to Norway, but Scandinavian countries like Denmark and Sweden, which are very close together. But yes, I grew up listening to stories like folk tales about trolls, and there's one called, there is a very known character called Askeladden, which is like a boy that's always in these classic stories, folk tales. And there's one where he competes with a troll who eats the most. But basically, there's always like a moral lesson to it. And he was just hiding the food in a bag so that the troll would eat a lot, but he was really not eating, which is why he won. So there are many stories like that. There is one about some people walking over a bridge, but there is a troll that's the owner of that bridge, and he lives under the bridge. So he's always asking who is walking on his bridge. What else do we have in terms of mythology? Well, you know that Vikings come from Scandinavia, or they came from Scandinavia. From the year 800, I believe, we have a lot of historical items that have been found, even Viking ship. So there are a lot of stories regarding Vikings as well. For example, the hat that they use. Many people believe that they have horns, right? But if you're actually from there, you know that they've never found a helmet with horns on, so that's not true. That's something that people invented.
Legend is still there.
Yes, it is. So that's not true at all. What else? Vikings were rapists, and they stole other people's things, like, I don't know, valuable things, gold and such. So they traveled in their ship to conquer new land, basically. So when they arrived there, they would rape the women, kill, and plunder, and then they would go back to Norway. Yes. There's a lot of romanticism around because it's such an old thing, right? Around Vikings and how cool they were, especially with the TV shows they have now, right? But they also show some part of the brutality in those shows. So believe that. That's true.
Okay. Now my question is about the health. What is the health system in Norway like? Is expensive? Is difficult? I don't know.
Not at all. If we compare it to our health system here, first of all, it's not paid like it's here, and it doesn't depend on how wealthy you are. So as long as you're a Norwegian citizen, you have the right to health services, basically. If you need to go to the hospital, no problem. If there's space, you will be allowed. There's also, if you have a doctor, a family doctor, normally people have that. You're also allowed to be on his or her list as long as they have space for you. And it's normally whatever medical center is closest to where you live. Same thing with schools. You just go to the school that's closest to where you live. But going back to the health system, there's a limit to how much money you have to spend on medication or if you're ill, right? So in Chile, if you have a serious illness, that's a serious problem for you too if you don't have enough money to pay for that, right? Which puts you in a difficult situation. So in Norway, people pay high taxes, but people accept that because it will return to them in benefits in the society, right? So you pay those taxes, but you have the right to health. So there's a limit. If you're ill, you have to spend a lot of money. I think it's 2,000 krones or kroner, which is the currency in Norway. That's the limit. Let's say it's about 200,000, 250,000 pesos. After that, you don't have to pay. So you get like a free card that says like, you already spent all this money, right? So now everything you need to spend money on for your health is free.
For example, in Chile, the public health system is more slow and it's more bad.
It's true. People die here waiting in emergency rooms, which is something that is unthought of for me. From where I come from, that doesn't really happen often at all, maybe, which is terrible here. I think it's terrible that your wealth decides if you have the right to medical services. I mean, it's terrible. So, yeah.
Yeah. So there are private or public service from health? Because for you sound it seems like just totally politics.
Yes, good question. It is public. It's generally public because of the taxes you pay. So if you need to go to the hospital, you just go to your local hospital, right? And they are decentralized, meaning that the municipality takes care of, keeping up the hospital, right? And you have the right to choose where you go or what doctor, if you want to change your doctor, for example. There are not very many like private hospitals because of that, which is also why people, you can have health insurance, but you don't really need it because it works pretty well.
Because you already have people who want medicine.
Which works well, yes, exactly.
Respect to the technology they have in the health system.
Yeah.
Like, is better than here or just like the standards?
I don't know if it's better, but I believe it is in terms of that they have the latest technology, right? Or they try to at least to be updated with what they have. They wouldn't have like really old equipment because that could cause problems too, right? So they actually care about that a lot, that things function as they should be and that there's no issues related to that because you're actually dealing with people's health, right? Which is a matter of life and death.
Do you know what kind of treatment do the newborn receive?
What kind of treatment they receive? It's also at the local hospital. So you go to control, like controls at the hospital before you give birth, right? And then you give birth in the same hospital. So pretty good, basically.
It's not in so special. It's like the same from other countries.
It's not like here where you have to nobody wants to go to the hospital unless it's the only option you have, and people just pay for a clinic, right? But only if you have money to do it, right? Well, in Norway, you go to the hospital, well, you would get probably the same or better quality of medical services that you would get here,
You don't pay.
especially in the hospital.
Well, you don't pay for it.
No, there's, as I said before, there's a limit for how much you have to pay.
Tell me about the health system. What are the most dangerous diseases in your country?
The most dangerous diseases? There are not like epidemic diseases, but I believe the number one cause for death in Norway or in Norwegian citizens has to do with heart diseases. Yes, I think that's the number one cause. And also because the winter is very long and cold and dark, where it gets dark around 3-4 p.m. Yes, and extremely cold. It lasts like 5, almost 6 months, like before you actually get some sun. There's a lot of depression too. People get depressed because of the darkness, because of the cold. So, yeah. And they offer services for that too, but it's also still something that mental health issues people prefer not to talk about. It's not as much taboo as it is here, because here you're criticized for it, right? Which is why people are afraid to talk about it. Probably there too, but not to the same degree. But absolutely, I think depression is one that should be on that list because of the weather conditions and the winter, basically.
Tell me about the technology. What is the difference between rural and urban areas in terms of technology?
When you say technology, do you refer to like computers and cell phones and such? Everyone has easy access to technology, so it doesn't matter if you live on the countryside. I believe people are like updated with that. Even though maybe it's more expensive than here, the economy allows for everyone to have an iPhone if they want to. Yeah, which is something I'm not interested in, but yeah, you can. You don't have to limit yourself in terms of technology. Like the economy basically allows you to get whatever you need. Yeah, I mean the salaries are enough for you to live in peace, basically.
Yeah, because here we have a lot of problem with the quality, because some people get money with their jobs, but there are some people that they barely have enough to eat.
There's a big gap.
Yeah,
Yes.
big gap between the quality in terms of the money.
Absolutely, there is a big gap.
Can you tell me about the technology in Norway? Do they care of nature?
They care about nature? Absolutely, because Norwegians, if there's something they love, is to be in nature. I feel personally like 50-50, like I'm 50% Norwegian and 50% Chilean culturally, because as I mentioned before, if there's something I miss a lot, it's being able to be in nature and have easy access to it. Here, if I want to do that, I have to go to beaches or far away, right, to the mountain range, and I need a car for that. Where I lived, and basically all around Norway, except if you live in like big cities, you have easy access to woods, forests, and nature. And they like to go on do trekking. When it's Easter vacation, people go to the mountain. They love cabins, so they go and stay in cabins. Have a hot cup of tea or coffee, just having some quality time with friends and family. Skiing or snowboarding while they're there, and then they return to their jobs when the holidays are over.
Okay. what kind of technological improvement has your country experienced?
Technological improvements?
Yes.
Norway is a country rich in oil and gas. And they discovered that. They didn't believe they were rich in that before the 70s. So in the early 70s, there was a big growth in the Norwegian economy because there are oil ridges or these platforms, I don't know if you've seen them, in the middle of the ocean where they tap oil and gas. And I think technology is very advanced in terms of mechanical engineering. So basically tools they need to tap oil and gas.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do they recycle in Norway?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is something that I brought with me to Chile. I don't know if I've given you this talk, but I have to my other students about the importance of recycling. I try to encourage my students to recycle and tell them how easy it really is. Something I realized here by recycling is that around 90% of what you throw in the trash can be recycled. I actually produce very little like organic garbage or trash because the rest of it, plastic or cardboard or cans, things like that, go in a separate container in my house. So whenever I have enough bottles too, I just go to the recycling spot and then I recycle everything I have. And that I learned from the Norwegian culture. Absolutely. They have something they don't have here. I see like they try to do something here, but it's not really working as I thought it would. These blue containers they have outside their homes. Have you seen them?
Yes.
But I think it's just for like all type of garbage, isn't it? Well, in Norway, we have we're given by the municipality. I think it's like 2 or 3 different containers, which is one for organic matter, which is, I think, the black or green one. And then we have one that's for paper and cardboard. And there are also spots where you can recycle bottles and everything like that. So the garbage truck actually picks up not only the organic matter, but also the paper and cardboard that you have in the different container.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're very organized in that sense.
And what kind of energy do they use in Norway?
Hydroelectric energy.
And,
they have a lot of rivers and
yeah,
so they use that in their favor. Sorry, you asked something?
And aeolic energy, maybe?
Yes, but not as massively as hydroelectric energy. I think that Denmark, which is the neighbor country, Sweden is closer, but it's in Scandinavia too. They're very focused on aeolic or wind energy. Yes, but mostly hydroelectric in Norway. That's like the primary source for electricity.
It's the most popular.
Yes.
Okay. Well, and that was the last question.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Sofia, for your time and your answers. And we'll make good use for these answers. And that concludes the interview. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all.